Okay, 9.2, special right triangles. Let's start with the review first. Solve the equation, write your answers in simplest radical form. That means do not convert them into decimals. So, we need to get x by itself. When we do that, we need to divide by the square root of 2 to cancel this. So our answer is x equals 8 divided by a radical 2. But the problem is we cannot have radicals in the bottom, in the denominator. So what we need to do is we need to multiply by radical 2 over radical 2. So what that gives me on the top is simply 8 radical 2. On the bottom, this is radical 4, square root of 4, which is 2. And then we must simplify. So x equals 4 times the square root of 2. Again, we do not turn into a decimal. We just leave it like that. So number 2, we're looking to get x by itself. We need to get rid of this radical 3. We do that on both sides. That cancels. That gives me x equals 5 radical 2 divided by radical 3. Now again, we need to get rid of this radical 3 on the bottom. So we do this. Now you got to be careful. On the top, we have 5. Radical 2 times radical 3 is radical 6. Just like 2 times 3 is 6, radical 2 times radical 3 is radical 6. And on the bottom, we end up with just 3. Because remember, this is the square root of 9. And since 5 and 3 can't simplify, we're finished. And you get x by itself. Here we're just simply dividing by 2. That's easy enough. That cancels. And here that cancels, leaving us 4 radical 7, and we're already finished. Now, here we have a rule called the 45-45-90 theorem. If you have an isosceles right triangle, meaning that both sides are the same. See how we have x and x? That means like 5 and 5, 7 and 7. If they are both equal, that means these angles are equal, which means it has to be 45 and 45. So it's a very simple situation. When you have a 45-45-90, whatever the legs are, which match, all you do is multiply by radical 2 to get the third side, the hypotenuse. Remember, the hypotenuse is opposite the right angle. Okay? And consequently, if you're going backwards to try to find the leg, you divide by square root of 2. And just think about it. The hypotenuse is the longest side. So if we're going from the leg to the hypotenuse, we're getting bigger. And if we're going from the hypotenuse to the leg, we're getting smaller. So let's do some math. This is obviously 45-45-90. Here is my hypotenuse, opposite the right angle. The legs are both the same. These are both 45. So all I'm going to do is simply multiply by radical 2, and that's my answer. I leave it like that. 8 times the square root of 2. Now in this one, it's kind of upside down, so pay attention. Here is my hypotenuse. If I'm trying to find x, that means I'm going from here to here. That means I'm getting bigger. So I'm going to divide by square root of 2. So x equals 5 times the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2. In this case, it simply just cancels, and I end up with 5. And you can check it. If I was going this way, I'd multiply by radical 2, and that's what I get, 5 radical 2. All right, a 30-60-90. Now, 30-60-90 is a little bit more complicated. Here's my right angle, so here's my hypotenuse. Now, the smallest angle, 30, is opposite the smallest side. The medium angle, 60, is opposite the medium size, and the largest angle, 90, is opposite the largest size. Okay, so it's kind of like small, medium, and large. We always want to try to find the small side if we can, because that's our base x. Now, going to the other leg, the longer leg, we're getting bigger because this is the smallest side. So we're going to multiply by radical 3. To go to the hypotenuse, again, from the small side, we multiply by 2. We just double it. All right? And then consequently, if we were going the opposite direction, we would divide by 2. And if we were going the opposite direction, we would divide by radical 3. So let's play with that a little bit. I want my smallest side. That's right here. Okay? Now, the relationship between the smallest side and the hypotenuse is just double, 2 to 1 or half, depending on which direction you go. Problem is, we're given the medium side. So we need to go from here to here and find x before we can find the hypotenuse. Now remember, if we're going from the medium side to the small side, we're dividing. And what's the magic number? Radical 3. So x is equal to 9 divided by radical 3. We can't have a radical on the bottom, so we do this. We rationalize. X is equal to 9 radical 3 divided by simply 3. And that's going to simplify to 3 radical 3. That is my smallest side. To go from here to the longest side, we simply multiply by 2. So we're going to take 2 times 3 radical 3, which makes simply 6 radical 3. This is going to take some practice, don't worry. If you need to rewind and watch it again, but we're going to do plenty of practice problems with this. The road sign is shaped like an equilateral triangle, which means all 3 sides are the same. Estimate the area of the sign by finding the area of the right triangle. Well, if it is an equilateral triangle, that means this is a 60, 60, 60. Well, area is 1/2 base times height. Well, we need to find the base. I'm sorry, the height. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut right down the middle. Okay? That's going to make this 90 degrees, and that's going to make this right here 30 degrees. Now, I'm going to redraw this separately to make it a little more clear. Right? This is my 60. This is my 30. Here's my 90. Now, this length right here is half of 36, which is 18. This side is still 36, and we're trying to find this, the height of the triangle. Well, what do we have here? 18 is my smallest side, which is good. Here's my hypotenuse, times 2, that worked out. So we're going to go here and multiply by radical 3. Therefore, x is equal to 18 times radical 3. So that is my height. So area is equal to 1/2. What's my base? My base is right here, 18. Sorry. My bad. Well, it could be correct depending on how you look at it. If I did 18 there, I would only be finding one of the smaller triangles. I could do that and just double my answer. Or, since I'm trying to find the entire base, the entire triangle, I need to use 36 here. And then my height, I just found out, was 18 radical 3. I'm going to leave the radical, okay, for now. And I'm just going to deal with these numbers. 1/2 times 36 times 18. Well, 1/2 of 36 is 18. 18 times 18, let's see what that is. 18 squared, that's 324. So 324 times the square root of 3. It says estimate, so I'm just going to take 324 times the square root of 3. And that's about 561.2. And that is inches squared. Okay? So it said approximate, estimate the area. So about 561. You're really just rounding. All right, 2 more examples. A tipping platform is a ramp used to unload trucks. How high is the end of an 80-foot ramp when the tipping angle is 30 degrees? What about when it's 45 degrees? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this twice. We have our 90 here. We're going to do 30 degrees here. We're going to do 45 here, which means this is 45 and this is 60. This is not changing. This is 80. Right? Now, on the first one, the 30, this is my small side. That's what we're trying to find out. We're trying to find the height of the ramp. Okay, right here. So that means, what number do we have? We have the medium side. We're going to the smaller side, which means we divide by radical 3. Scratch that. I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking about the real world here. Sorry. In the real world, what's happening is, some colors here, this 80 feet is being lifted. So that's right here. My mistake. Wasn't thinking about that. So this is my 80. 80 is my hypotenuse. Right? Which actually makes this problem a lot easier. So with this one, when I'm going from the hypotenuse to the small side, opposite the 30, it's simply divide by 2. So x is 40. On the 45, very steep, much more steep than the 30, I'm going from here to the same thing here and here. Okay? So when I'm going from here to here, I'm going to divide because I'm getting smaller. But remember, on a 45, 45, 90, it's radical 2. So x is equal to 80 divided by radical 2. Remember, we can't have a radical on the bottom, so we do this little trick. That gives me 80 radical 2 on the top. All we do is just pretty much write those. On the bottom, this makes just 2, square root of 4. And then simply, that's going to divide into 80, leaving me 40 radical 2 feet. And since it did not say approximate, I'm going to leave my answer as a radical. And last one, just some fun practice here. Okay? Find the missing sides. So what have I got? I like to draw the arrows. I have my smallest side. That is awesome. That's the easiest one. So I'm going to go to the easiest math, and I'm going to multiply by 2. Because remember, going from the shortest side to the hypotenuse is simply doubling it. So if I multiply 15 times 2, that's 30 radical 2. If I'm going from the small side to the medium side, remember I multiply, wow, I don't know how that happened. I multiply by radical 3. So if I take radical 2 times radical 3, that's radical 6, and the 15 just tags along. So 15 radical 6. Again, leave it as a radical. We wanted the exact answers here. 45, 45, 90. These match. Whenever I'm going from here to here, I simply divide by radical 2. So I'm going to have 10 radical 6 divided by radical 2. Now, I don't have to do that little trick where I do this. And the reason is, just like 6 divided by 2 is 3, radical 6 divided by radical 2 is radical 3. So that's all we have to do. 2 more. 45, 45, 90. I'm going from here to here. I'm getting smaller, and the magic number is radical 2. So I simply do 14 divided by radical 2. I do have to rationalize here because there's no radical. So that gives me 14 radical 2 over 2. That simplifies to 7 radical 2. And last but not least, again, I have my small side. To go to my hypotenuse opposite the right angle, I'm going to multiply by 2, simply. Whole number times whole number, 2 times 8 is 16, and the radical 3 just tags along. Going from here to here, I'm going to multiply by radical 3. This is also really nice, because 8 times radical 3, which is what I have here, times another radical 3. Well, remember that little trick here. This is just 3. So this ends up being 24, and we're finished.